speak without barakoa, I find it easier. And I think I'm far enough from you not to get COVID from you. Your Excellency, the Vice President, the family of Joe Nyagah, and all friends and relatives gathered here today, I think I want to say good afternoon. Before I speak, I just want to make one correction that Bill Mayaka and Alice Mayaka would like to make. Bill reminded me that Alice was not actually sacked. After the saying goodbye to Mzee, JJ, there was the forming of a coalition government where there was a big reshuffle in government. Some seats or some positions were axed, some were recreated. It is in that process of reorganization that Alice suffered axing, not dismissal, because there was a whole government exercise not targeted at Alice herself. So I hope that that will be corrected in the annals of history and that a clear perspective will be received. Secondly, Norman, let me apologize too that the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga could not come, but he sent me a message to be read to the family in memory of Joe Nyagah. It's a very brief message, which I will read before I give my own elegy to my dear friend Joe Nyagah. We are here today to bid farewell to a decent and a truly honorable man. In life, Joe Nyagah was a true representation of what all of us wish to be: good citizens of the Republic of Kenya, able to build the type of country we all wish to have. He was non-tribal while respectful of the unique cultures of our dear vice citizens, proud of our country while recognizing and pointing out its failings. He was God-fearing and deeply proud to be born again. This was a status that he never shied away from pronouncing to his friends and foes alike. One of the things that struck anyone who came face to face with Joe was his graciousness, his smile, his reassuring presence, and his honesty. Ever so optimistic, hardworking, and deeply patriotic, Joe strongly believed that it was possible to turn Kenya into a prosperous, not tribal nation through the honest efforts of all leaders and citizens and through sheer hard work. I believe it was in the pursuit of this ideal that he surprised the community of this region and chose to work with us in the Orange Democratic Movement in the run-up to the 2007 elections, probably well aware that it would cost him politically. In his small way, Joe was trying to bridge the divide that plagues our survival as a nation and many times turned deadly. Joe was a worker, and an extremely disciplined one at that. When I nominated him, not me, Raila, as Minister for Cooperative Development, I knew he was equal to the task. But nothing prepared me for the lengths he would go, visiting different parts of the country and reviving cooperative societies that had long died or creating many new ones from the scratch. He revived a sector that was then marred in numerous problems and laid a firm foundation that will serve this country for years to come. In Joe's death, our country has lost a fine public servant. Having served as a diplomat, corporate leader, MP and cabinet minister, among other portfolios, Joe Nyagah left a mark in virtually every facet of our nation's life with great success. One of the projects that remains a work in progress and which he was passionate about is the unity of Kenyans, regardless of tribe, race, faith, age, or gender. I recall that soon after my handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta in March 2018, Joe was among the very first people to come to my office with the encouragement that it was the way to go and that we needed to walk the whole distance. That remained his message to me until his timely death. In Joe's death, we have lost a patriot of our nation. I have lost a friend and a counselor. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Raila Amolo Odinga, EGH, December 19th, 2020. Norman, I will hand you the physical message when we leave here. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was sitting here with Sisi Mbeere, and then Sisi saw in the program, or heard, I don't know where he had it, that I was godfather to Mwaniki. He looked at me, she looked at me and asked, "Is that real?" I told her, "Yes, it is." And we laughed because she couldn't believe, in honesty, that I can be a godfather. I think Sisi, that was rather discussion. But as you can see, as roguish I am, I have been a godfather to an extremely well-disciplined and well-brought-up child. I'm proud of Mwaniki. And I'm proud of my role as a godfather, which is the only role I've played in life worth talking about. And I hope that somebody will look at me and say, "Come and be godfather to one of my siblings or one of my children." That's an application which I extend to everybody. It's a job that I clearly welcome, seeing how successful I have been with Mwaniki. Now, ladies and gentlemen, like Nash, I am going to read my speech. It's not very long, Norman, but since this is today's, can you give it tonight to him? Give that to, yeah. I know why I'm giving it to him. Today is Joe's day. And having lived in this world for 72 years, I hope you will be patient enough to listen to us talking about our friend. I was asked to talk about friends of Joe, and there are many here. Friends from the Lions High School, Amos Wako, sitting over there, Sally Kosge, sitting somewhere, and many more that I've seen in this congregation today. That's the reason why I'm wearing this tie, this dear Lions High School old boys tie. And by the way, when a vice president, deputy president, men never grow up. Men are always boys. It's only women who grow up. If you want to know that men never grow up, just ask a man what relationship they have with their wives. And the wife will tell you, your socks is smelling. Where did you leave your underwear? Men are always boys. That's why the connections and relations we make as boys last so long in life. It is therefore with a very heavy heart that I write this piece as a tribute to my friend Joe Nyagah, who passed on this month in Nairobi after a short illness. A gentleman with a tremendous sense of humor. He was great company and a friend in need as well as friend indeed, in the true sense of that famous saying. He had friends across race and color. He was omnipresent in Kenyan politics as a parliamentarian, minister and diplomat. He made a mark in history. I first knew the Nyagah family through our late father, the Reverend Canon Hesbon Shimei Nyong, who used to tell us stories about his days in Nanyuki during the Mau Mau. In 1953, my father had been posted to Nanyuki as a young Anglican clergy serving the King's African Rifles. We were not expected to visit father, nor did he ever come home for holidays for the 3 years he served in the army. But he made many friends within the church in the Mount Kenya region, and one of them was Jeremiah Joseph Mwaniki Nyagah, Joe's late father. The others were the late Bishop Obadiah Kariuki and the Reverend Sospita Magwa, both of whom he had known during his training as a clergy at St. Paul's Theological College, Limuru, now St. Paul's University. These names were familiar to us in the many stories father told us of his exploits as an Anglican priest serving in a war zone. From the very beginning, many ties bound us together. Hence the title of my tribute, The Ties That Bind. In 1962, my late brother Agri and I joined the Alliance High School when the legendary headmaster, Edward Carey Francis, was heading the Alliance High School on his last year of service. 2 years after that, Joe joined the same school. Agri and I felt we were meeting someone we had known for a long time, if only from the story his father had told us about his father. The years of the Alliance were full of joyful experiences, which may be remained printed in our minds, sometimes even romanticized, as nostalgia became the pastime of men rapidly being swallowed by adulthood and its many earthly responsibilities. Great ties that bind. The school motto at Alliance High School was strong to serve. It was instilled in us in hymns of redemption songs and songs of praise twice a day, morning and evening, except Saturdays. The sermons were not devoid of it either, nor was speech days and pep talks that teachers engage in when disciplining a boy who, for some reason, might have behaved contrary to school rules and the school motto. We were fully involved in extracurricular activities such as drama and music, whilst also walking hand in hand in the famous valley with girls from the Alliance Girls High School. We didn't do anything more, as Mary, Joe's sister, can testify to that, since she was in the same class with my sister, Susan. So if they thought we were looking after them, we also feared they could report on us. Great be the ties that bind. Joe was a singer of no mean repute. He belonged to a band called The Strangers, together with Abdallah Baker, Ben Swai, and the retired Bishop of Butere, Michael Sunday. Their own revival band at the Alliance High School ecosystem were the Strollers, where Joe Mungai, Sami Mwangi, Ben Mumo, and Jojo Ngaya styled themselves as the Beatles. One can therefore understand why Joe grew up the way he did, why he was such a stickler for decency, discipline, honor, fairness, work, punctuality, public service, and civilized behavior. Joe was a civil man, but always relaxed and self-effacing in many ways. He not only stepped into the footsteps of his father, JJ, but lived up to the spirit of the Protestant ethic that the Alliance High School instilled in the boys. Great be the ties that bind. Wind the clock forwards, and you will find that after I left the Alliance High School and went to Makerere University as an undergraduate in 1971, I found that there had been many Kenyans of high repute, who had trailed the blaze before us in that renowned university college, the only one of its kind in East Africa then. Such were men like Jeremiah Joseph Mwaniki Nyagah, 1940 to 1943, and Emilio Mwai Kibaki, who joined later in the mid-50s. At Makerere University, the university motto was, and still is, we build for the future. In Latin, pro futuro edificanos. Emilio Mwai Kibaki, later to become Kenya's third president, who is remembered for Kenya's renaissance after many years of authoritarian rule, was served by both of us, Joe and I, as ministers. These are the ties that continued to bind the two of us as history was unfolding. Wind the clock forward again, and I find myself at the University of Chicago doing my postgraduate degrees in political science from October 1971. 2 years later, Joe also arrives to do his master's degree in business administration at Kellogg's Business School, Northwestern University in Evanston. a suburb of New York, a suburb of Chicago. But that the business school was downtown, not in Evanston. He calls me from a downtown hotel and announces, "I am here," with a laugh at the end of it, as if I had seen him the previous day. So I go to fetch him and insist he quit the hotel to stay with me in my 2-bedroom apartment in Hyde Park, the south side of Chicago, where the University of Chicago was and still is. Great be the ties that bind. Wind the clock forward, and Joe announces again casually that he was going to get married after he had moved out and staying alone to be nearer his school, as well as the First National Bank in Chicago, where he was an apprentice. I'm soon introduced to a beautiful lady called Margaret, a diminutive school teacher from Scotland who had come to Kenya to pursue her profession at State House Road Girls High School in Nairobi. My sister Susan had just finished her teaching practice there and then joined the school with Margaret, teaching in the same school. Great indeed be the ties that bind through the invisible hand of God. One morning, Joe wakes up and calls me that the wedding was that afternoon at a church downtown. I was to arrive in time since I was the best man. As a graduate student, I didn't have even a suit, let alone any form of formal clothing. So I put on my kitenge shirt, jump into the metro with a khaki trouser, and get there perfectly in time to be instructed by the priests on the wedding procedures. When Mwaniki was born and needed to be baptized, it was the same thing. Joe simply fetched me from my house in Nairobi and drove me to church to be the young boy's godfather. By the way, my sister Mary had been the nurse who delivered Mwaniki at Nairobi Hospital. She seems to have specialized in delivering the children of VIPs because President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he came to my mother's funeral, reminded us that Mary's was the nurse that delivered their firstborn at MP Shah Hospital. Great be the ties that bind. When I eventually got married in 1979, 6 good years after Joe, although I'm older than him, can understand why I delayed. He drove me in his car to All Saints Cathedral for my wedding. Like a good Jaluo, mine had to become organized, much more in style. Dark suits, bow ties, and all that. Arriving in a sleek Mercedes-Benz, driven by the son of a minister. But do I say? Joe insisted that the first night Dorothy and I had to spend for our honeymoon had to be in the new Boulevard Hotel in Nairobi. So there he drove us. The rest is history. And that is how our honeymoon started. Great be the ties that bind. Much more memorable, however, were our years as members of parliament and subsequently ministers in the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, and subsequently ministers in the coalition government. We toured the country together during the campaigns for the referendum, the party election, the great election, general elections. Some of the people we worked with are here, members of the Pentagon, the Deputy President, Najib Balala, Ninajibu, and Omwami Musalia Mudavadi. I was your Secretary General. I can still refuse to give you tickets. So, we were frequently in Embu at Sir Isaac Walton Hotel. It was quite often that it was our scene of meetings and workshops. with Joe always telling campaigners to be as serious as Joe Nyagah, the only handsome man in town. A message he delivered with a serious face, hiding a noticed smile beneath it. That was the vantage Joe. I speak on behalf of many friends who have similar stories to tell about Joe. He kept his dear friends to his bosom, opening up to them, encouraging them under difficult times, and being with them at moments of joy and sadness. And Bill Mayaka will testify to that. Those friends are here and abroad, like our former teachers at the Alliance High School, with whom he kept in close contact, more than any of us. Sally Kosgei is here, a dear friend of both of us, who can tell her own story and her own history with Joe. I'm sure Francis Mudavadi can speak on behalf of all those who worked with in government, who enjoyed Joe's company. And finally, fellow Kenyans, on behalf of Raila Amolo Odinga and the ODM fraternity, Joe would have thanked you today for the mission you sent us together during the settlement of the controversial elections of 2007-2008. With Joe, we met President Jakaya Kikwete on behalf of Raila. And I was thoroughly impressed by Joe's power of persuasion on our stand and points of view while insisting on the indivisibility of the Kenyan nation and the sanctity of holding together as East Africans. We have lost a diplomat par excellence, Joseph William Nthiga Nyagah. Joe, you go to heaven with the many ties that bind us together. Great be the ties that bind. Rest in peace, Wood Mama. God be with you till we meet again. By his counsels help and hold you. In his hands securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet again. Till we meet again. God be with you till we meet. Till we meet. Till we meet again. Till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Anyang Nyongo. Trust Ajaluo, he must sing for you to hear. He has a beautiful voice. Excellent voice, Professor Makofi. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. The next one will be a very good friend of Joe for many, many years. They did very many nice things and evil things together, I assume. They have worked this journey for a long time. They were together in ODM. If you saw those who came in earlier, he was at one point a big man in Mombasa. Now he's our Minister for Tourism, Waziri Najib Balala. All the way from Mombasa, Tukushukuru kwa safari yako. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Waziri. You give your condolences.
All is good, all the time. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, colleagues, the family of Joe, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Governor of Embu, the Speaker of the National Assembly. I wondered why Mary asked me to speak here today. The whole story was said by Professor Nyong. But I realize everything I did, probably I copied Joe. He's a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist too. He dreamed to be a president. I don't know if you have reached there. I have 20 years difference between me and Joe. But one time we were together in the so-called the orange and banana movement. And finally, when we declared that the orange will become a party, it was Professor Nyong, His Excellency William Ruto, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Joe, and myself, when we consulted and we said probably the orange must be a party. And that's why during the divisive referendum of 2005, I pray and hope this referendum will not be divisive, because the repercussion of a divided nation would be bad. I appeal that it must be a unifying referendum, or if none, no referendum, but a unity of purpose to build this nation. So we went through that, formed a party. There was a presidential nomination among the party. I was the member number 101 of ODM. I ran within my party. Suddenly, Joe Nyagah followed. Then it was William Ruto. Then it was Musalia Mudavadi. Then it was Raila Odinga. We went back to Kasarani. And I remember in 2002, when I met Joe at Serena, it was after the Kasarani of Serena when there was a merger of KANU and NDP. That time, I asked Joe, what are the plans? Where are you going? He says, don't worry, Najib. I will be in government by any ways. In any equation, he will be in government. I said, fine. So you have seen now, I've learned, I am in all governments. And even the next one coming, I will be in there. So, Your Excellency, I don't know if I'll be in your government, but I know I will be in government. The only thing, ile rada nimepoteza kidogo. Zamani nilikuwa ninajibu, sina siri. Sasa nimezeeka kidogo, nimepevuka kidogo. Sasa hatujui mambo itaenda vipi. But I can assure you, if you mean good for this country, like Joe was, committed, honest, with dignity, and no politics of deceit, then this country will move forward and the good people will lead this country. So when we were in ODM Pentagon then, finally, and then crisis happened, we had to go to negotiations with the Kofi Annan and the group. And before Kofi Annan, John Kufur came. He was the chairman of African Union. He came to Intercontinental Hotel. And because we were young, we were literally vibrant, and we wanted what is right, not what is to be compromised. And I can tell you, John Kufur requested for the two of us, myself and Joe, not to attend the meeting because we were too straight in the discussions. We wanted what is right to be done. And then we were left out. Suddenly, it was Musalia Mudavadi who went upstairs, Raila Odinga and William Ruto who met John Kufur. Unfortunately, that discussion collapsed. And then later, Jakaya Kikwete came in as again the new chair of the African Union, and where then that the good things and the reconciliation happened. So you could see we came a long way And before even the reconciliation, that's why, Mwaniki, you are talking about tear gases. We were all being asked by the same Secretary General of Mass Action to go on the streets. And yes, we were the young Turks. William Ruto, myself, Joe was behind us hiding. And that's why I didn't know the story of a toothbrush or a toothpaste. But I can tell you, we didn't mean bad. We just wanted the right things to happen again. So yes, we came a long way. And I can tell you as well, every time things happen, I ask him. He said, don't worry, we shall be in government. 2008, we were in government, all of us. 2013, some of us, led by Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. 2017, the same thing. 2017, I asked Joe, what are you doing? Running for presidency for what? We are already in government. He says, don't worry, now you'll be in my government. So I told him, fine, let me go with my own government. And when you form it and we lose, I'll join you. So then he comes back and says, now I retire. You know, I have a young daughter, a young wife, and I'm going back to the village. So I said, fine. So occasionally we meet at my house in Kileleshwa. We are closer, we are friends. And yes, Joe, I can say, I will miss your counsel. I will miss your wisdom. I will also want to say you have been a great man for this country. Rest in peace, my brother. God bless you. Thank you all.
Asante sana Waziri Najib Balala, rafiki ya Joe. Sasa kuna mwingine ambaye ana safari ya mbali, alikuwa rafiki yangu na pia ni rafiki yangu, tumekuwa bunge na yeye. But when he comes in here, Your Excellency, he's not going to talk about what Professor Anyang was showing off from the Alliance. This one will come and say, the Prince of Wales. Shall we welcome ANC boss, Musalia Mudavadi. And you must always remember.
And wondering, are you for BBI or anti-BBI? Let us put closure in a very well organized.
They will not come to eat mandazi ile ya kawaida kwa sababu hao ni wadosi wataondoka.
Sense of loss that I send you this message of condolence and encouragement following the death of Honorable Joseph Nyagah. To the family, relatives and friends of Honorable Nyagah, may the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ, which surpasses all understanding, keep your hearts strong and cover you during this difficult time. Honorable Nyagah, popularly known as Joe, was a social, humble, kind, generous, and courageous person. He was equally a hard-working gentleman whose diligence enabled him to shine in whatever task he put his hands on. Certainly, Honorable Nyagah's death leaves a huge vacuum among us that will be hard to fill, for he was synonymous with success and discipline. Honorable Nyagah demonstrated the virtue of consistency of purpose and exceptional dedication that saw him being sought to manage and oversee operations of key entities, both in the Republic of Kenya and abroad. And in all the places he served, he left an enduring mark of excellence. His unique ability to understand the challenges of the times and to use his skills to turn around both public and private entities to successful enterprises endeared him to those who served under him. His exposure to diplomatic and economic affairs, as well as international trade, earned him a diplomatic posting in Belgium and to the European Union before being appointed the Managing Director and CEO of Kenya Airways. We fondly recall how he successfully turned around the fortunes of the airline, making it the pride of Africa. At the opportune moment, Honorable Joe ventured into politics, where he extended his service delivery prowess by serving Kenyans as a legislator and as a cabinet minister. Indeed, Joe was a great person. He was a friendly leader, highly experienced in public service, and a very influential politician. What stood out most in my many years of interaction with him was his brilliance and clarity of mind when articulating matters of public interest. It is rare for someone to serve two administrations at the ministerial level, but Joe defied all odds. That because of his accomplishments and the trust that he earned from his appointing authority. It is in recognition of the distinguished service he rendered to the nation that he was honored and decorated by the state with the second-class Elder of the Order of the Golden Heart of Kenya. As a person, as a nation, we owe Joe a debt of gratitude for his long and distinguished service to the country and for his many accomplishments as a public servant. May you take solace from the word of God in Revelations 14:13, which says, and I quote, "And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth, yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them." End of quote. We pray to our Almighty God to rest the soul of Honorable Joseph William Viga Nyagah in eternal peace. Signed, Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya,